The Holy Wars, the untold story of the Crusades. For nearly 2,000 years, Jerusalem has been called the City of God, sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. But there was a time when the streets of that holy city ran red with blood. When men from across Europe left their homes, took up the cross, and marched thousands of miles to fight and die in the name of faith. This is the untold story of the Crusades, the wars to defend, reclaim, and preserve Christianity. The call of heaven. The year was 1095. Europe was poor, divided, and restless. Famine and war ravaged the lands. But far away, in the east, there were rumors of Christian pilgrims being attacked, of holy places desecrated, of Jerusalem in the hands of infidels. For centuries, the city of Jerusalem had been under Muslim rule. At first, Christian pilgrims were allowed to visit freely. But when a new power, the Seljuk Turks, conquered the region, everything changed. Christian pilgrims were robbed, tortured, and sometimes killed on their way to the Holy Land. In desperation, the Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos sent a message to the West, to the Pope, asking for help. He needed soldiers to defend the Christian East from Turkish invasion. At that time, the head of the church was Pope Urban II. He saw the emperor's request not just as a military plea, but as a divine opportunity to unite all Christians under one banner, to heal the divided church, and to reclaim the city where Christ had died. So on November 27, 1095, in the French town of Clermont, the Pope stood before a massive crowd and declared, "God wills it. Deus vult." He called on the Knights of Christendom to march to the Holy Land, to take up arms not for gold, not for glory, but for God. The Crusades had begun. The People's Crusade. The call spread like wildfire. Peasants, farmers, and common men believed the end of the world was near, and that fighting for Christ would save their souls. One of the first to answer the call was Peter the Hermit, a fiery preacher with a ragged cloak and burning eyes. He traveled across Europe shouting, "Christ commands it. The holy city must be free." Tens of thousands followed him, poor, untrained, and hungry, waving crosses made of wood. This became known as the People's Crusade. But faith alone could not conquer the East. As Peter's army marched through Hungary and the Balkans, they looted villages and clashed with locals. By the time they reached Turkish lands, they were slaughtered by professional Muslim soldiers. Almost all were killed. The People's Crusade ended before it truly began. But the real Crusaders were still coming. The Prince's Crusade. Unlike the peasant mobs, the Prince's Crusade was led by Europe's greatest knights and nobles. Among them were Godfrey of Bouillon, Bohemond of Taranto, Raymond of Toulouse, and Robert of Normandy, men who commanded armies and believed they were chosen by God. They marched eastward, crossing rivers, deserts, and mountains, facing hunger, disease, and ambushes. It was a journey of faith and suffering. By 1097, the Crusaders reached the walls of Nicaea, a stronghold of the Seljuk Turks. After a fierce siege, the city surrendered. It was their first victory. From there, they marched toward Anch, one of the oldest Christian cities. The siege lasted 8 long months. Food ran out. Men ate grass, leather, and the flesh of horses. Desertion spread. But they refused to give up. They believed God was testing them. Then, a miracle, or so they believed. A poor monk named Peter Bartholomew claimed to have found the Holy Lance, the spear that pierced Christ's side. The discovery filled the Crusaders with new courage. They charged the enemy and captured Anch, but the victory came at a terrible cost. Tens of thousands were dead. Still, Jerusalem lay ahead. The March to Jerusalem. By the summer of 1099, after 3 years of war, the Crusaders finally reached the Holy City. Jerusalem stood on the horizon, walled, fortified, and held by a powerful Muslim garrison under the Fatimid Caliphate of Egypt. The sight of the city brought men to their knees. They kissed the ground, wept, and prayed. But prayer alone would not open the gates. The Crusaders had only 13,000 men left against 40,000 defenders. They built siege towers, ladders, and battering rams from wood cut in nearby hills. Every blow of the hammer echoed with faith and fury. On July 15, 1099, the attack began. At dawn, trumpets sounded, and the Crusaders stormed the walls. Godfrey of Bouillon led the assault. By noon, they breached the defenses and poured into the city. What followed was chaos, a massacre that still haunts history. Thousands of Muslims and Jews were killed. The Crusaders claimed they were purifying the city, but blood flowed in the streets of Jerusalem. When the killing stopped, the survivors climbed the steps of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was believed to have been buried. They fell to their knees, crying and singing hymns. After 400 years, Jerusalem was Christian again. The Kingdom of Heaven. The Crusaders established a new state, the Kingdom of Jerusalem, ruled by Godfrey of Bouillon, who refused to be called king. He said, "I will not wear a crown of gold where my Savior wore a crown of thorns." The Crusaders built castles, churches, and fortresses. They created new orders of warrior monks, the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitaller, sworn to defend pilgrims and protect the Holy Land. For nearly a century, the Christian kingdoms of the East flourished. But the dream of a holy empire would not last. The Muslim response. In the Muslim world, the fall of Jerusalem was seen as a disaster, a wound to Islam itself. But slowly, leaders began to rise who would unite their people. The greatest of them all was Salah ad-Din Yusuf ibn Ayyub, known in the West as Saladin, a Kurdish general of honor and mercy. He brought together the divided Muslim factions under one banner and vowed to take back Jerusalem. In 1187, he faced the Crusaders at the Battle of Hattin, near the Sea of Galilee. The Christian army, led by King Guy of Jerusalem, marched through the desert without water. Saladin surrounded them, set the fields on fire, and crushed them completely. Soon after, he entered Jerusalem not with bloodshed, but with mercy. Unlike the Crusaders, he spared the lives of its people, allowing Christians to leave peacefully. The city was once again in Muslim hands. The Third Crusade. When news of Jerusalem's fall reached Europe, it shocked the world. Three of Europe's greatest kings vowed revenge: Richard the Lionheart of England, Philip II of France, and Frederick Barbarossa of Germany. This became the Third Crusade, the most famous of all. But disaster struck early. Barbarossa drowned in a river before reaching the Holy Land. Philip returned to France after quarrels. Only Richard the Lionheart pressed on. For 2 years, Richard fought Saladin in a series of epic battles. At Acre, Jaffa, and Arsuf, his courage became legend. Though fierce enemies, both men respected each other deeply. When Richard fell ill, Saladin sent him fruit and ice to ease his fever. In the end, Richard could not retake Jerusalem. Instead, he made peace with Saladin, allowing Christian pilgrims to visit the holy city freely. It was a moment of chivalry in an age of blood. The later Crusades. After Richard and Saladin, the crusading spirit slowly faded. Later Crusades, the 4th, 5th, and beyond, became less holy and more political. In 1204, the Fourth Crusade shocked the world when Christian armies attacked Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Christian Empire. They looted and burned it, proving that greed had replaced faith. By the 13th century, Muslim forces recaptured the last Crusader strongholds. In 1291, the city of Acre fell. The Crusader states were gone forever. The legacy of the Holy Wars. The Crusades lasted for almost 200 years. They began as a cry of faith, but ended in exhaustion and disillusionment. They brought death and destruction, but also trade, knowledge, and contact between East and West. Europe learned of new medicines, sciences, and ideas. The Crusades opened the roads that would later lead to the Renaissance. But for many, they left a bitter scar, a memory of war in the name of God. Christians, Muslims, and Jews all remember them differently. As glory, as tragedy, or as a warning. The true meaning. In the end, the Crusades were not just wars for land. They were wars for the soul of mankind, proof of how far faith can drive men, and how easily faith can be twisted by power. 8 centuries later, Jerusalem still stands, still divided, still sacred. A city where the prayers of 3 faiths rise together, and the ghosts of the past still whisper in the stones. The Crusaders dreamed of creating a kingdom of heaven. What they found instead was the truth of humanity, that heaven cannot be built by the sword. If you believe history should never be forgotten, and stories like this should be told again, make sure to subscribe, like, and share the Untold World. Because every war has two sides, and every faith has a story.